Pretty much across the board, but not by a dramatic amount. We'll get into it and why. But first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then a look at crop techniques and ag's technological importance. And finally, what's moving the livestock markets? An expert weighs in to explain. So, markets closed the week on a downswing, both row crops and livestock affected, with only one exception. Let's take a look. The week's only gain, lean hogs up nearly 3¼ cents. That's more than a 3% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, soybean oil, down over 2¼ cents. That's nearly a 5% decrease from the previous week. So, we're well into planting season. USDA says over 3/4% complete for corn, soybeans, and rice. So, what are some factors to help your crop succeed? Phil Michener of Dynagrow recently appeared on the Mississippi Crop Situation podcast to give his advice.
And, the thing for me with soybeans, what I look at is you have to have canopy closure. That's what's critical, right? Because if you run water on soybeans that has not closed canopy, the next thing that you get to do the next week is you get to go back and kill grass. I think we need to have that thing pretty well knitted up, that canopy pretty well closed up by the time we start getting serious about pouring water to it. Otherwise, all we're going to do is create more work for ourselves. So we have to time that. We have to think about all that together. Now, there are going to be scenarios that are going to arise where we need to run water. Regardless of what we're going to have to do on the backside, we're dry enough. It doesn't look like we're going to have that in 2025. There are years where we have to run a rescue application of water early on, and then it may be 4 weeks before we run it again, but we had to do something to get it salvaged and get it saved. And the folks I've seen do that and do that effectively have reaped the benefits of that as well. I feel this way about all crops. Everybody needs to be doing a little bit of experimentation here, there, and yonder on in their own environment with their own farm and everything else. If you're not looking to adapt and innovate a little bit, I think you're gonna find yourself left behind. And because we've been adaptive and because we've been innovative, we've seen these soybean yields do what they've done over the last couple of decades. And I don't want to stymie that anytime in the near future. I carry a bit of a chip sometimes because when I moved to the South, it was everybody was kind of like, well, they're behind. Let me tell you, my experience in the South and in Mississippi in particular, or the Delta in particular, on top of that, we're as innovative and technologically forward as any aspect of the country. I still, U.S. agriculture is second only to the U.S. military in the amount of applied technology that's used in its day-to-day operation. We use more technology, more applied technology in modern U.S. agriculture than probably just about any other industry that's out there. Shoot, you think about the drone sprayings that are going on at this point in time. That's a huge step forward in what we're able to do. But outside of the U.S. military, I'd really struggle to find another industry that's operating with the level of applied technology that what we are in U.S. agriculture. And that's across all crops. That's not necessarily soybean specific, but it's just something to really think about, what a big deal it is. And a lot of that innovation happens, again, because of cropping cycles and because of the fact that we get to get in the ground earlier and everything else. A lot of that early parts of that innovation happen down here. And it's something to be proud of for us as an industry.
So, livestock prices also falling recently, with lean hogs seeing a little push. What was the cause? Market analyst Naomi Bloom says it's markets reacting to rumor, specifically screwworm, appearing in U.S. cattle, and customers choosing cheaper meats.
Well, we saw a quieter week with cattle for cash, but the big hype this week was that false rumor of the screwworm coming into Missouri. And so what that demonstrated was how a rumor, true or false, can really make the market fall apart. And that's how this cattle complex is so going to be varied upon headlines, and the market is going to be just really ready to react and respond to things. So we had news this week that cash was, a little steady. We saw box beef demand okay, exports were okay, but traders are cautious to take the market higher until we get some bigger concrete reasons of still strong demand showing up. And the bearish key reversal on daily charts from a couple weeks ago is still out there as a major topping signal. So we'll see what the cattle complex brings next week. And just a reminder, on Monday is going to be expanded daily limits for the cattle complex. So that'll just add to the volatility. Well, the hog market has really just been working higher overall. It had a pullback last week and a little bit earlier this week, but we finished the week with some strength. We had decent export numbers this week, and exports overall have been pretty strong. And the consumer demand, I think, has been there in general, just because we're looking for cheaper substitutes for beef. And I know that a lot of people have been using pork more. And in fact, I was at a spring tailgate for Platteville, and one of the moms was grilling pork chops, and I had not seen that at a tailgate before. So their demand is there, and the consumers are starting to respond. And the hog market, the funds are long now, and we'll see if they do any profit taking as summer goes on, or if that pork demand is just going to keep on improving.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Quite a few things in flux right now. The cattle industry still dealing with screwworm while row crops adapting to a wet spring.